and if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome back to the Oak Road Hatter podcast. We're now just under 6 weeks until Luton Town kick off their Premier League campaign with a trip to Brighton and Hove Albion. There's plenty to look forward to as we wait for that season opener. Like, where and when will we have pre-season? Is there going to be a European trip involved in that? I know two people here hoping that a European trip is on the cards. I'm here with Jamie Castle and Kieran Robertson. Fellas, how are we getting on?
Yeah, pretty good. As you say, we're 40 days out to Brighton away, and currently that's our next game. It'd be good to know who we're playing in pre-season. But no, until then, obviously, it's exciting seeing some transfers starting to happen, and sort of Luton seem to be drip feeding us news day by day rather than just sort of throwing it all at us at once. But no, it's good to have a Premier League transfer window.
I'm doing all right. It's one of those where I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat and I've got Ryanair bookmarked on my laptop at the moment, ready for when this moment happens, if it happens. And if we don't get Ajax away in pre-season, there is going to be a few unhappy Luton fans on Twitter. We all know what Twitter can be like. And a few of those in the know accounts are going to be a little bit lost for recognition. But fingers crossed for a strong pre-season nonetheless.
Of course, today we're going to look at the first two editions at Kenilworth Road this summer in a little bit more detail. We're going to chat fantasy football as 5 players' prices have been revealed, and we're going to discuss the latest on the transfer rumour front. Let's start with Chiedozie Ogbene, a player whose name is already stumbling me. I'm sure there's plenty more of that to come. But I'll come to you first, Jamie. What are your initial thoughts on Ogbene? I guess we've seen him in a Rotherham shirt. He's impressed on the international stage as well. What do you make of his signing?
Yeah, I mean, to start with, I'm just going to call him Chio. I think the club called him Chio on the social media, so I'm just going to put that out straight away. But as a signing that at first I was happy with, but not like over excited with. But I think the more I read about him, the more I sort of see clips of him, and the more I guess, and again, just seeing his sort of initial interview with the club, he is that typical Luton signing. He's athletic, pace, power. Again, probably a bit raw in final product, but you just picture him away at City, and he's the exact player we're going to need on the counter, right? I'm pretty sure he can run at Diaz or Akanji and get him on the back foot. But no, you can't really argue about a free transfer. He's going to be a player that definitely fits in our wage structure. But no, I mean, it will be an exciting one. I think it's a player that we probably need to let do the talking on the pitch. I think he's going to be someone that surprises a few people. I think he's going to make his mark. I think he's not going to get in straight away. It's going to be interesting to see where he plays. A lot of people talking about maybe right wing back, maybe up top. So that's going to be interesting to see where he plays to start with. I mean, as it stands, he's the only right wing back at the club or player that could probably play there. So he's probably there at the minute. But it's going to be interesting to see where he plays in the long term. But on the free, he's got lots of Champions League games under his belt. Impressed in a decent enough Rotherham side, so put him around some better players, and I'm sure he'll excite.
Kieran, I have him down as a striker. I don't know what you think as of yet, as Jamie alludes to already, a bit of versatility. Can you see if, well, not if, now he's arrived, do you think that could create a potential loan move for someone like Joe Taylor, someone who provides a little bit of a similar service in he's pacey, he's a player that looks to break the back line. Do you think that Ogbene coming in might have some sort of impact on what we do with Joe Taylor?
I'd say it definitely has an impact on the pecking order. Like you look at sort of the attacking players we've got, you look at Eli's, Morris. At the moment, they are starting to, but then you look further down, Musquay, McAtee, even maybe Mendes Gomez fits in that category of sort of, oh, could he play up there? Maybe. And again, like Joe Taylor, like you said, him and Peppel, probably the two that were sort of like pushing, had loan moves, or at least in Peppel's case, he did. But for me, I think it emphasises the loan move for Taylor more. Same thing with Peppel again, McAtee, players like that. If we're in the Championship, it's a different story, but we're in the Prem now. It's a much bigger ball game. It goes without saying. I think a League One move or even a low-end Championship for Joe Taylor, I feel is probably the ceiling at this point.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
I think that back end clear out is going to be interesting this summer to see what happens with that. I mean, there's quite a lot of volume in that back end, right? In terms of like Kieran mentioned, you got Musquay, you got McAtee, you got Peppel, you got Mendes Gomez, you got Pereira. There's a lot. I mean, it's quite deep in terms of the amount of players we've got in that sort of up top sort of attacking mid category. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Probably a few low moves, maybe a few permanents out. But yeah, I mean, I certainly can't see Mendes Gomez or McAtee or Peppel sort of getting in the 25 or thereabouts. I think Peppel might be sort of allowed outside of the sort of like the age criteria. But other than that, I mean, there's certainly going to be one or two that move on either permanently or loan.
Yeah, to be fair, that sort of idea, I think, stretches further down the team as well. Like even to midfield, like players like Elliot Thorpe, you sort of look at and think, are you going to get anywhere near the 25? And if not, then it's sort of at this point, you either look at loans out and think, will they be a use next season? Or for players like Peppel, or more so like a Musquay or a Mendes Gomez, you kind of look at and think, has that bridge, like we're not crossing that bridge at this point. That ship's probably sailed, in my opinion. Low-end Championship, high-end League One, again, like Mendes Gomez, like one of my friends supports Portsmouth, for example. And I said to him, I was like, if you sign Mendes Gomez, like that's a top-level League One signing. That's the sort of thing. I basically kind of offered him out and was like, take him if you like. It's fine. The same with Matt Macy as well. Matt Macy can go to Portsmouth for a week.
That's definitely fair. It seems like that group is our sort of like our hedge against relegation, right? So they're going to assess that group and see, like, on the assumption that we don't stay up in the Prem this year, who do you think can impact in Championship 24-25? And I think that's going to be the main factor around who stays and who goes.
Yeah, and sort of to further that on, it then depends on, I suppose, how many of those players are sort of willing to hedge that bet. Like how many of them, especially like a Mendes Gomez, who we know has been struggling for game time ever since he's come in, looks at it now, this will be his third season with us now. You think, right, am I actually going to get games here? And at some point you sort of have to take charge of your career. But equally, if you were to look at that group and say, hypothetically, 4 or 5 of them another more outgoings, that then means we need to bring in another 4 or 5. So then what does the quality look like with that depth now? That's kind of the interesting debate for me, I think.
And it's difficult in the respect that we don't know contract lengths.
Yeah.
A lot of other clubs probably stretch it to the majority of clubs in the EFL and pushing up to the Premier League as well. No contract lengths of their players. So it makes it more difficult to really understand who we think should go. We don't really know their contract situation, which throws a bit of a complication into things. But as you say, I think of that group, Mendes Gomez to me has always been the one that's pushed it, always looked that little bit more ready than say your Elliot Thorpes, your Admiral Musquays. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. Would a Championship club take a punt on him? He's still only 23, 24. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Potentially, if his contract's looking favourable, it could be an opportunity to make a little bit of money from him as well.
100%.
We'll go on to Mads Andersen, the signing that took all weekend to make. I think looking at everything so far, my personal view, I think it's a very good signing. Very Luton. He's defensively dominant. He's strong in his duels. He's comfortable with playing out from the back as well, and just his character to sit down and have that spoken interview with the Barnsley media team. I think that speaks about his character, and we all know Luton recruit players based on, of course, ability and the person they are as well. So I think he could be somebody that doesn't just fit in stylistically and with us going into this sort of new era, but I think his personality will also fit in the squad. Jamie, initial thoughts on Mads Andersen coming in? We've used Barnsley to our advantage again. What a connection.
Yeah, it seems like the Moncur unlucky Barnsley meme can be played every summer, right? But you have to feel for him to an extent, losing I guess, a key player every summer. I mean, it's something that we've been used to over the years, but it's not been to the same club the whole time. So I guess that stings even more if we lose said key player to a big club. But no, I mean, I think in terms of the personal side of it, but you nailed it. He's everything a Luton player should be, and probably a bit more in terms of just the humility. He shows that he cares, and I think some Premier League fans would have seen that Barnes interview and would have sort of been like, "Oh, come on, it's only a move, blah blah blah." But they'd be like to some players, it is more than just a job, and you can tell he really cared about sort of the opportunity that Barnsley gave him. I mean, they took a bit of a punt on him from Denmark, brought him over, and I mean, certainly for the first year or two in the Championship, he absolutely smashed it. He was a big part of that Barnsley side that got him in the playoffs. And then you look on the technical side of things, it's a player that I would have loved Luton to have made before. I guess there's the element of question mark from the outside now, given we are a Premier League club. But fundamentally, if we'd have signed him last summer, if he'd have had a full season with us throughout the season and then got promoted with us with that year behind him, we'd be sat here right now thinking he would make a massive impact in the Premier League. Okay, he might have been in League One last year, but I think through our rise through the pyramid, we've seen that there is certainly an element of blurred lines between Leagues 1 and 2 and Leagues 1 and the Championship. It's not as clear cut as them being tiers as they are from the outside. Certainly, he was a Championship defender playing in League 1 last year, and he's played. Well, I don't know the exact amount, but I assume 40 or more games for Barnsley last year. Was a big part of their playoff run again. And yeah, I think, is he going to start from the first week? Maybe not. It depends what happens with Lockyer, and we'll get onto Lockyer no doubt later in the pod. But he's certainly someone that can fight for that starting spot. And I think we mentioned it on the last pod. It's sort of tough with this squad and the way we're going about it. We're sort of given that core, I guess that core 15, 16 players that really contributed to getting us up, we're giving them rightly, in my opinion, a chance to impact in the league. So you've got to recruit in that ballpark where, okay, we probably could go out and sign 1 or 2 or 3 players that are first names on the team sheet for the Premier League, but at the end of the day, that could be a bit harsh on Bell, a bit harsh on Doughty, harsh on Adebayo. And okay, we probably at one point go out and sign someone a bit bigger in terms of sort of the 6, 7, 8 million pound mark and bring them in. But it's always going to be harsh on someone in the starting squad. So Andersen sort of fits that bracket perfectly, I think, in my opinion, in terms of we've got, I guess, what I called it 4 centre halves now at the minute, with Bell, assuming Locke signs on, Osho and Burke. So you've got 4 there that all deserve their chance. And now we've got a 5th who will definitely, certainly fight for that starting spot. He's probably as good as any of those names, and we'll push those first 4 on to make their mark in the Premier League. So I think all round it fits the bill perfectly from the personal side, technically, and just in terms of that squad management side of it as well.
For the fans of other clubs that are ridiculing what we've done in the summer transfer window so far, just a little history lesson. Luton Town have recruited from the lower leagues for quite a long time, and it hasn't stopped us rising up the leagues. It's not a sign of that we're gonna do worse than Derby. It's not a sign that we're not even trying to stay in the Premier League. Don't want to say anything too big just yet, because of course the season hasn't even started yet, but our recruitment team know what they're doing. They've got a proven track record, and I'm sure signing of Mads Andersen is going to be another example of excellent business from the club. Kieran, coming on to you about Mads Andersen. I think he stated that he's still got Denmark. He still wants to represent the Danish national team. He's still got those aspirations. Premier League opportunity for him. A bit of a no-brainer as soon as Luton's interest would have surfaced for him. But do you think he's a player that can succeed in the Premier League and then go on to perhaps represent Denmark on the international stage?
In terms of getting in for Denmark, I think him signing for us puts him on a bigger pedestal at the end of the day. Like, as soon as you're a Premier League player, just by circumstance, it makes you more prone to those sort of opportunities. And he's not exactly coming in to say an Aston Villa or maybe even a Crystal Palace where he's going to be third or fourth choice. With us, in my opinion, he'll probably be first. There's a reason that we've supposedly spent a club record fee on him. Like, he's not going to be that sort of player that sits on the bench behind what we've got. I think he makes the starting three. The comparison that I sort of drew to in my head was quite like Ethan Pinnock, not necessarily in terms of style of player, but more circumstance around Pinnock in the sense of, ironically, he was a Barnsley player as well. But signed for Brentford in the Championship, had a full season in the Championship. And when they went to the Premier League, like, everyone and their nan was watching Brentford the season they went up. And there was a lot of doubts about Pinnock and whether he'd make the step up. And now there's a reason he starts at the back with Ben Mee, right? He's now an established Premier League centre-half. So if Ethan Pinnock can do that under similar circumstances, Mads Andersen, again, another player that's got age on his side. He's determined. He's got the right mindset to succeed, whether that is with us in the next couple of seasons or whether that then leads him to a bigger move. There's no reason why not. Absolutely not.
I think with Mads Andersen, well, the funny thing I've seen today is that Barnsley have since been linked with another centre-back, and every comment was, pretty much every comment was a Luton fan with sort of the eyes emojis saying, this is going to be our next signing. It has become
Welcome
so
to Luton 25-26.
Admittedly, I was quite surprised because I feel like either we were linked with Liam Kitchen or it may have just been a discussion amongst Luton fans essentially saying, oh, we should look at Liam Kitchen. So the fact that we've not signed him, I was like, oh, I'll keep that one in mind though, because that might still come later down the line. But
always next year.
I think that link was more by the fact that he was a left footer. I think I've seen a few comments from Barnsley fans saying that Andersen is by far their better defender. I think it was just a Luton fan putting two and two together, seeing that they've got a pretty good left footer centre half. We were playing a bit of a makeshift left footer centre half in Amari Bell, so maybe that's something that we do in future. But no, I mean, who knows?
How does it feel to know that our two record signings now are both Barnsley players?
We have to. I said this to you, Jamie, the other day. We have to have a scout that's permanently in Barnsley, not allowed to leave South Yorkshire, that just stays there all year round and reports back. He's probably got the most strenuous job there is, because we constantly go to Barnsley for talent, don't we? It's become I don't know if it's a sort of stylistic thing. I don't know if it's the way they play kind of mirrors the way we play in terms of out of possession. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure we'll be back.
I might try and find someone to hack Luton's expense system, and I'm no doubt there's like a Barnsley season ticket in there somewhere where there's like an annual expense in our cost line in the accounts for season ticket at Barnsley FC. I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
Can we take note as well? Can we bring someone, a Barnsley fan, onto Oak Road Hatter as well?
Permanently, it's just allow that transition in knowledge. Yeah.
Match reports direct from League One on who will be signing the season after.
Okay, let's go on to some contracts that have been signed. Luke Berry has penned down fresh terms with the Hatters, Colton Morris, Reece Burke, Cauley Woodrow and Amari Bell so far. It's clever with some of them. It's good to see that certain players have committed their future to the club. It's a very, very good opportunity at the moment to be part of this fantastic club. And I don't think they would have taken much convincing, but still we're protecting our assets. In at least some of them, you have to say, in Colton Morris, Reece Burke probably. What do you think, Kieran, first? The 5 that are signed so far, any of them catch you by surprise? Any of them you think is particularly good business at this point?
I'd say all from the standpoint of, like you said, it's that sort of incentivize for the players in a sense of getting them to sign on. Like, I'm sure that they're all going to have some sort of relegation clause in their contracts where either their wages drop or they're allowed to leave for a certain fee. But it's smart business all round at the end of the day, because whether or not they all start, I mean, for the sake of Morris and Burke, they're likely to, but for the other 3, maybe not so much. But at least for their sake, their financial security is safe. Our squad depth more so is safer having them in. They're players that know the club already, especially look at someone like Luke Berry, League 2 to the Premier League. From his standpoint, I think it's more of a, you deserve to see this through with us more than anything. Like, is he going to get most game time? No, because you look at this season, didn't get that much. It was here and there. And whenever it was, in fairness, he did make an impact. So I'm hoping, albeit it might be a lot less, I hope he still has the same impact this season. Amari Bell, influential in our success last season. Cauley Woodrow, same thing. Didn't play much, but when he did, had somewhat of an impact. I think it's that thing of, there's not maybe a hint of thank you to it, like here you go, here's a bit of extra money. But if we go down, these are sorts of players we're going to be looking to keep on board.
Yeah, I think it's just smart around. I think like you could take Luke Berry for example, right? He's been with us since League 2. He probably was on no more than a decent high-end League 1 salary last year in the Championship. Probably what, 5-6 grand a week. I can't see him being on much more than that in the Championship. So again, it's just like, as Q said, it's just a bit of a thank you. He probably isn't on much more now. Probably on 9-10 grand a week, and that's me completely picking numbers out the hat here. I've got no, I guess, evidence to it, but that's just, I guess, in my head. I can't see us paying Luke Berry 15 grand a week, for example. Right? He's probably on 9-10, there or thereabouts. So again, even that for the Premier League is nowhere near the levels that a Premier League club are paying in terms of as an average. It keeps the squads, everyone's sweet, everyone's sort of on the same page that, you know what, we are being rewarded, we are sort of being financially thanked for the work that we've done. And there probably isn't even a clause in it for relegation, right? Because Luke Berry's contract probably is now 3 more years, and even if we went down this year, the contract will expire by the end of the parachute payment. So the wage is probably in line with a Championship club with parachute payments. So I think it's all round it keeps everyone sweet. And I was listening to 5 Live, and it was Gary Sweet was on the show, but it wasn't Gary Sweet that said it. I think it was either Wilder or Kim Maguire mentioned that, like, okay, year 1, your existing squad go up, and don't really ask for too much by the way of money, because they sort of, they're on the high and they're on the wave, and that they're keen just to sort of keep that squad sort of going. But then it's year 2, if you stay up, they all know, well, actually we've proven ourselves to be Premier League players. But if that happens to us next year and we stay up, that Gary Sweet and that will go back, well, you've had a bit of a pay rise last year. And I think it just keeps that squad management, I think, the wider strategy sort of really sweet. I think everyone at the club knows exactly what they're trying to do. So just across the board, sort of, I think just it's that keeping that sort of that strategy, and that's just that system of keeping the squad together going.
And of course, all this contract talk, probably will continue to speak about it, because there are situations to do with Pelly Ruddock and Panzu and Tom Lockyer to still sort out. And I'm sure we'll hear very soon what comes of that. We're going to head into a short break. Afterwards, we're going to speak fantasy football, and then we're going to end on the latest transfer rumours involving the Hatters. We are back for the second half of this episode, and we're going to speak through fantasy football now. And this is Jamie Castle's baby. This is what Jamie Castle lives and breathes for. He is proper into his fantasy football, and I think combining that with his love for Luton Town, and he's in a pure state of happiness at the moment. Today, we're recording on the Monday night. It was the release of a few player prices for the upcoming campaign. We've got 5 Luton players that we've seen prices for so far. We've got Colton Morris at 5.5 million. We've got Elijah Adebayo at 5. We've got Jordan Clark at 5 million. We've got Gabriel Osho at 4.5 million and Amari Bell at 4 million. Jamie, I'll come to you. Give us your thoughts on all things fantasy football and Luton Town Football Club.
That was an unnecessary. That was sort of a not needed big up from you there, Bill. I mean, you think I'm an expert, but I just like it, and I'm trying to get better at it, but no. I mean, on the whole, prices. I think I was surprised across the board. Morris at 5.5 was very surprising, and from someone that was going to pick him, delighted. I obviously the graphics that went out on our socials today. I drafted one at 6 and one at 6.5, thinking that surely there's no way he's any higher or lower than that. And then when they released it at 5.5, I was frantically sort of trying to edit the graphic to make it 5.5 because I was just shocked he was going to be that low. So I think that speaks volumes. At 6, he would have been in my side. Probably not an FPL view, but just a Luton bias view. But at 5.5, he actually starts to come into the FPL view. Actually, the unbiased opinion that actually he probably becomes a very good pick. You've seen Haaland at 14 million, so the going joke is that everyone's budget is now 86 million for 14 players. So every squad's going to need a differential, a cheaper pick, and a 20-goal championship striker in Colton Morris, that the highest scoring player of any of the 3 promoted sides at 5.5, I think is an absolute snip. He's an absolute cert for that third forward spot if you play 3 up front. So yeah, I think that's spot on. Adebayo at 5 is an interesting one. Again, this is. If you look at the short term view, he was nowhere near the levels of Morris from an output perspective last season. But does that 0.5 mean you can save elsewhere? Who knows? It's going to be an interesting one. I think let's see what happens in terms of any of the forwards that you sign. Clark, love him, but not really an FPL asset. For 5 million, you just go Adebayo instead, depending on your team structure. So I can't see him being a pick at 5. And an Osho, I think Amari Bell's price puts him out of contention as well, right? I think everyone was thinking Doughty, and if Doughty comes in at 4.5, then he's a steal. If he comes in at 5, then it's a bit more of a debate to have. But Amari Bell at 4 just basically puts Osho out the running. And then Bell at 4 is interesting. I think every FPL manager wants a starting defender at 4 million, and we've got one. He definitely will start the season, in my opinion, from game week 1. So to have someone at 4 million, I mean, every defence is probably going to have a 4 million defender in it, unless you go for 4.5. So why can't that be Bell? Ultimately, 4 million is just your throwaway pick, right? So I think he's going to be in a lot of teams.
And Kieran, coming over to you, of course, there's just been 5 players so far. Who else are you keeping your eye out on? Which other Luton players do you think have potential to potentially be in your team, and what kind of price would you be looking at?
So I had a glimpse at obviously the results earlier that come out. The one that stood out for me, and I was gutted they didn't leak the price for him. Doughty always stuck out for me. I feel like attacking wing backs, kind of silly not to, and I think I'd have done the same if Drame's price was leaked, if we actually had him as a permanent player, of course. But Doughty and Morris, without a doubt, literally, will both be making my team, I think. I mean, I'm nowhere near as serious as Jamie. I mean, this is the same guy that organised us in a Zoom call for an FPL draft last year that we all gave up on after 2 weeks. But
because I was battling you boys, that's why.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that, mate. That's fine. But when it comes to FPL, normally I'm not asked, but I think that is admittedly because by Christmas I'm not that asked about the Prem in general. And I always said, oh yeah, the second that we're in it, like, oh, I'm going to love it. And well, here we are. So I suppose this year I will actually play a full season of FPL. And if I'm going to, I best believe I'm going to have 3 Luton players in there. I think Doughty, Morris, and then probably Clark, to be honest, make the 3 for me. Obviously, you can only have 3 from each team. It would just be quite funny to see a Haaland, Salah, and Morris front 3 in my team.
I think the goalkeeper pick's going to be interesting, obviously, subject to who we sign, right? I mean, it seems like, again, we'll come on to it, but it seems like Begovic is going to be one of the 2 that we're looking to sign. I can't see Begovic being 4.5. I can't see him being 5. He'll be 4.5 or 4, probably 4.5. And then it gets into goalkeeper rotations, right? You've got to look at fixtures, and I think us and Everton rotate quite nicely in terms of the games to start with. So Pickford's only 4.5. So do you pick Pickford and then the Luton keeper at 4.5? So that's going to be interesting to see who we sign in goal, and also what price to come out at. But I can't see it being at only 4.5. It could be that we sign 2 and one of them comes in at 4, and that could be a surprise if that one starts. So.
And of course, we still got the right wing back position to fill. It seems that we're looking for a more creative midfielder as well. So definitely a few more potential Luton players to put into your fantasy team. That is for sure. Like last season, we'll have a league going. We'll definitely keep tabs on that as well to see how us Hatters are getting on. Jamie, last thing about fantasy football here. Just Kieran brought it up before. You won the draft last season, and as Kieran rightly mentioned there, all of us pretty much didn't have a clue past sort of November time, but you won it. You won it soon as we started the draft, and you picked Haaland. I think as soon as anyone picks Haaland, that's game over.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that's hindsight thinking. You had that idiot Rory Jennings or whatever his name is on things saying he's going to barely score 10, right? And I think any decent football brain would have known he would have bagged at least 20. But I think even beyond anyone's thoughts, he was a bit of a robot, really, right? I think we all thought he would have a really, really good season, but no one really thought he was going to be a 35 or so goal striker. So yeah, obviously hindsight thinking, I was lucky to pick Haaland, but I'm not even sure I was first pick. I think I was like 3rd or 4th. So the idiots who was 1st and 2nd didn't go Haaland. I think one picked Son. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But no, I think
Can confirm that was not me.
I think it was Harry or something. But no, I think it'll be tougher this year when you boys probably become a bit more wiser in your choices.
Yes, that is for sure. Funnily enough, I'll be doing my bit to try and get Colton Morris as my first pick this year going forward.
if you're pick 1 and pick Colton Morris over Haaland, I appreciate and applaud the Luton glasses, but come on.
We get a right
I think I just laugh.
If we get a right wing back that provides a similar service to Doughty, we will be flying, I tell you. We'll be flying. We'll go
Flying
on
up
now
to 12th place, I heard.
to the latest transfer rumours. And of course, there's been so many since we've been, since promotion to the Premier League has been confirmed. I was struggling to think which ones we covered, which ones we haven't covered. So I had to go back through. The latest ones that we're going to speak about, we'll start with Ben Pearson. I'm going to tie this in with Nakamba. Of course, there is all this talk about will we get Nakamba? Various reports suggest that we're edging that a little bit closer, but Ben Pearson, another sort of holding midfielder, tough tackling, good distribution, reads the game very well. Do you envision a scenario where we get Nakamba and Pearson? And I guess the second question within this, Kieran, is would you take a player like Ben Pearson?
I think Ben Pearson screams one thing to me, just screams hard bastard. Like, you know he's going to get sent off 4 or 5 times a season, right? But the thing is those sorts of players don't come around very often. Like, it's very Kevin Nichols-esque. like to have like Nakamba, as solid as he is, he's quite tame, isn't he? Like he loves to retrieve a ball and he'll love a tackle, but there's not that sort of aggression about it. He's very smart. He's very technical. And that's weird to say about a defensive midfielder when it comes to the defensive side of their game. But when you look at someone like Ben Pearson, he's like, the ball's there, tunnel vision, he's in, and he's just going through you no matter what. And I like the change in dynamic. Like, I like us having the option of either or, because there's going to be certain games next season where you go, do you need Nakamba or do you need Ben Pearson? And I like the idea of having both. I know that some people might look at us being linked with a Ben Pearson and go, oh, if we're getting in, we're not getting Nakamba. And there is probably an element of truth to that as well. But best case scenario, we get the pair of them. And if we do, we've got the best of both worlds. We've got someone who's technically really good on the ball, can pass, can distribute, but also be a bit of a hard nut. And the other in Nakamba, who is solid and reliable, and evidently is one of the key sort of cogs in the gears of getting us promoted.
I think we're definitely going for 2 DMs. I think. I mean, just looking at the links, you've got obviously Nakamba. It seems like we're trying to go for, trying our best to get him subject to wage and fee structure. Then we've been linked to Travis, been linked to Pearson, been linked to that Martinez guy from Midtjylland in Denmark. It definitely seems like we're trying to get 2 DMs, and I think not only is it because we want different styles, but I think it's also we want just a bit more depth there, and there isn't really anyone else in the squad that can play DM. So again, if we go into the season with just Nakamba, that's a bit lightweight. Again, Pelly, Clark, Campbell, all fantastic players, but they're not defensive midfielders, and probably not an argument to say Campbell might even see a move out this summer. I don't know. I certainly don't think Edwards' flavour of the day. There's a reason why Berry was getting in ahead of him a lot of times last season. So yeah, I think we're definitely going to go for 2 defensive midfielders. I would love a younger one. I think again Pearson, I think he's fine, and he certainly suits the squad well. Same with Travis, but I would love someone a bit younger. And that Martinez guy from Midtjylland, know nothing about him, but just by the fact that he's 23 and been linked with other Premier League sides, and by the seams of it, is only a low single-digit £1 million fee. So someone like that, if we can find someone like that, that'd be excellent, especially behind Nakamba. Someone who's in Nakamba who's experienced, played in the Premier League before, gone for a big fee, played for Club Brugge, played European football. So there's no doubt in his experience at that level of football, and we saw what he could do for us in our squad last year. And then if we can get someone younger as that sort of backup, and also that one that could probably take over towards the back end of next season and beyond, that'd be perfect.
I think you open up a debate there, Jamie, about Alan Campbell. Of course, very, very good player, somebody that embodies everything Luton Town is about in the Championship. He really, really impressed. But what happens now? It was sort of evident he wasn't Rob Edwards' choice, both in a starting 11 and as the season wore on, he wasn't called upon to change games and swing the game in our favour. We've all spoken about what he brings to a game of football and loved having him, but do you get to a position where you think we could cash in and generate quite a sizable fee for Campbell, what he's already done in the Championship? He's 24 still. He's still got a lot of years left to play at a high level. If he's not going to play a significant part in the Premier League, do we look to shift him on? I think that's something we'll have to ask out on socials moving forward. Kieran, what do you think on Alan Campbell? Do you envision a scenario where we get rid of Campbell permanently this summer?
I think there's no sort of option, I think, where he goes out on loan. I'd be very surprised if that was an option. I think if you're Rob Edwards and you're Luton at the moment, I think if a club comes in and offers a fair fee for him, because he's going to have, 1 or 2 years left on his deal now, probably. If someone comes in high-end Championship, more than likely, and offers you a fee, I think if you're Rob Edwards, there's an element of you that goes, do you know what? Yeah, for the sake of, if he's not necessarily part of his first team plans next season, he's probably going to be quite unsettled. Like I can imagine he probably felt quite unsettled as it was, because we were surprised that he got dropped. And then sort of out of favour where we had Nakamba, Clark and Pelly as our sort of go-to three, let's say. In my opinion, you look at that three, he doesn't overtake Nakamba, he doesn't overtake Pelly, and then Clark's a completely different midfielder to him. So again, doesn't overtake him. And if you're not getting in that starting three, and we're already looking to improve and build on that three anyway, I feel like his chances then diminish that little bit further. And then at some point you kind of like have a mutual discussion, I think, and it becomes more about the player than the club itself. And it's like, for the benefit of the player, do you let him move on if an offer comes in and he wants to entertain it? I feel like you kind of lose the choice in the matter.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think anyone that's been listening to Oakwood Hatter for a while will know that I love Alan Campbell. I've banged on about it so much in terms of since we signed him, that first season in particular, he was out of this world for us. For me, one of the best players of the season in that 21-22 campaign. And then even last year, he obviously big goals, Watford at home, you can't forget that. So I think for us, he's been superb. But I think it is the thing where, can we get 3-4 million for him? Probably. I think if you look at clubs in the Championship, if Coventry get 15 million for Haymo, do they reinvest and look at someone like Campbell? I don't know, right? I just don't think he just fits in the Edwards system. He isn't a single pivot DM like the Campbell. He just isn't that player, and he's not good enough going forward technically to be in that 8 like a Pelly or Clark. So I just can't see him fitting in the system, and I think it's sad, but it's just he is a casualty of progress and I guess a change, right? I think if Nathan was still in the job at Luton, he wouldn't have lost his place. But that's football. One of those things will always be, I guess, in my heart as like a cult hero for Luton if he does go. But yeah, if we can get £3-4 million and put that towards a fee for Chong, let's say, I think this is someone that we've been looking at, someone who, again, is a completely different type of midfielder to Alan Campbell. Okay, he's played out wide for Birmingham, but he could play in that 8 role. He's definitely technically going forward so much better than Campbell in terms of playing in that 8. So would suit a Luton system a lot more. So I think it's, I guess, seems a bit of a wheeling and dealing type thing where we're sort of selling a player who's really good because he doesn't fit a system, but can probably benefit us to get a fee to reinvest in a player that suits us more.
It's a strange situation how quickly we've evolved, and heading into the Premier League, it does perhaps force things that you couldn't really imagine happening just say 12 months ago. And that's certainly Alan Campbell's situation. That's something that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. We'll go on to Japhet Tanganga. I never thought I'd be saying him in relation to Luton when he was breaking through at Spurs. Athletic, comfortable enough with the ball. He's got the odd mistake in him, but he's still 24 years old. He's at a good age to progress. Probably somebody that would command a sizable enough fee, but it's within the realms of possibility. We've been linked to him by journalist Ben Jacobs. Do you see that coming up? Do you see us pulling a deal like that off, Kieran? Do you think Tanganga is a player that Luton could lure to Kenilworth Road?
It feels like yesterday that Mourinho was phasing him in the team at Spurs and was sort of like touting him as this next big defender. And I remember at the time, everyone else was getting pretty excited about him, to be fair. Sort of fell off the radar a little bit. Like he's played a bit part role ever since Mourinho left Spurs. But for me, where he's already had that Premier League presence and he's already exposed to the Premier League, we're local to Spurs, even if it's a year on loan. Obviously, if we get him on a permanent, I feel like it goes without saying that would, without a doubt, be our record signing. But again, like 24 fits the mold of a Luton player. Young, sell on fee there's potential for it. Like I wouldn't say no, absolutely no. But again, like I said about Andersen earlier, where for me he fits in to that first 11 straight away. Tanganga, absolutely no doubt fits in that 11. There's absolutely no way. But similar to what we said about Joel last week, I'm not going to try and pronounce his surname. I'm so sorry. Where he can play centre half and right back. I know he might have gone to Coventry or somewhere similar now. But Tanganga fits that mold too. Centre half, right back, but again, has that Premier League exposure that comes with it.
And something else that fits a Luton mould is point to prove, right? I think there's a reason he was in the Spurs squad. Obviously, the higher ups at Spurs saw a lot of him, but he's been prone to a mistake. He's been thrown in at times in the deep end and maybe not been quite ready for it. And that has led to a few doubting voices at Spurs. So he's got a point to prove, and he comes to Luton, and it's almost a bit do or die for him. He comes to Luton, has a storming season, keeps us up, and suddenly he's a Premier League player, no doubt about it. Or he comes to Luton and he flops, and then he's probably a Championship player. But in terms of recruitment, I think that's one thing that we don't talk about enough is having players that have points to prove. I think Andersen has a point to prove, Ogbene has a point to prove, and I think Tanganga again has a point to prove. I think he will come in and he will give it his all for us because he wants to prove to everyone that he is a Premier League player. He's still young enough to get in amongst international football if he has a good year or two under his belt. So yeah, absolutely a Luton signing. The only question mark is probably going to be in the £8-9 million fee mark. And if it is the case, he comes in to start. There's no way we're going to drop £8 million a player and he doesn't start. So that's going to be a very interesting one to watch. And there's a reason that I think Atalanta are linked as well. There's a reason that they're in the picture. They obviously see something.
We've got quite good sort of history, haven't we, with Spurs and centre halves? Like you think of Carter Vickers, similar mould. Like the points you made then about having a point to prove. Like Carter Vickers was in that same situation where I think again he'd flirted with the first team, but he was waiting for that moment of show me what you're made of, effectively, and he came to us. And a lot of Luton fans will happily say he single-handedly kept us up. I would probably die on that hill as well. And I'd also die on the hill of if he didn't come to us for that loan move, I think it put him in the spotlight a lot. There's a reason now he's one of the starting two at Celtic and he's highly trusted in that role and has since played European football and things like that. Tanganga could have that same effect where, like you said, comes in with a point to prove, has a really strong season, and worst case scenario, and we go down, but has an influential sort of season. He could easily command a bigger fee in that sense, or command a bigger move, and it shows what he is actually made of and where he's at, still only 24. And I think Carter Vickers was at a very similar age when he come on loan. Who knows what your next move is after that? Or best case scenario is we stay up, he stays with us, and obtains some sort of a cult hero status.
Let's hope so. We'll go on to Ryan Manning now. Henry Lansbury is out of the club, so this is a little bit more sensible, a little bit more likely than it would have been, say, a year ago. But what is it with all these players we've been linked with so far and having spats with Luton players? Because obviously, the Ryan Manning, Henry Lansbury situation, Joel Latibodiere had that little incident with Colton Morris when Morris scored last season. And then the third one was Lewis Travis as well, who had that exchange with Luke Berry. Seems to be something on the criteria that if you are to become a Luton player this season, you must have pissed off one of our players.
I just can't wait for him to be subbed on at home to Burnley to joking chants of Henry Lansbury he kicks who he wants. Like that would just be amazing. But now as a player, I think it'd be a great signing.
To clap it as well.
I think as a player, it'd be a great signing. Now I think we need someone to support Doughty, and he's the perfect player for it, in my opinion. I think you see Forest last year sign someone like Toffolo. He's that same sort of mould. Will come into us and will support Doughty fantastically. Will give us that second option, free transfer, decent wages. Do it.
What about you, Kieran? What would you say about someone like Ryan Manning coming in, left wing back by trade, but he's also played a fair few games for Swansea as a left side centre back. Again, versatility, very, very good last season for Swansea. I think he won their player of the season. Would he provide good competition to Doughty? Could you see him starting over Doughty?
Not necessarily starting over him at first, anyway. But reliable, versatile, experienced, all the key words that sort of I'd associate Ryan Manning. I think You look at our business so far, mainly so you look at Ogbene. There's a reason we're looking at these free transfers from the Championship, because they're absolutely no-brainers. Like, they're players who have... You look at Ogbene, like Jamie alluded to it near the start, he's played really well in a Rotherham side that isn't the best, but a decent enough Rotherham team where he's been given a platform to shine. Ryan Manning, same thing, mid-table Swansea team, but he is the outlier in terms of, by form, air quotes, being the best left back in the league based on the team of the season. And that speaks for itself, right? And if someone says to you, statistically, we'll give you the best left back in the Championship on a free, on really good wages. Oh, and by the way, he's still only 26. And you said, no, someone would slap you silly. Like, you bite your hand off at that. It's a no-brainer. It's competition. It's then having two reliable players in that position. And again, versatility. He's played games at left centre half. If we need it, sound. I think I sort of made a comment on the last podcast about Manning when asked, and it was very sort of case of, you put Manning in there, you free Dowsey up to push further forward, potentially, if that's an option. And I still stick by that as well. I think it gives the team something different, similar style to Doughty, but offers something a bit different in a way. I'd condone the signing. I'd be happy.
It comes back to, we spoke about Tanganga, essentially paying 10 million for him. There's no way we can pay 10 million for Tanganga if we, I guess, waste the odd £2-3 million here on there on someone alternative to Manning, right? We need a free transfer like Manning to allow funds to put to use, to maybe go out and spend £6-8 million on each on two players, right? So in terms of the financial side of things, he's pretty much perfect. You can't get a more perfect sort of left wing back depth option for us there than Ryan Manning in terms of wages, in terms of fee, and it will free up £2 or £3 million that we could spend on someone else or towards someone else. We could uplift the fee for someone else. So for me, it's the most perfect link I've seen so far.
And let's close today with a Begovic update. Of course, we have been linked with Asmir Begovic for a while now. It's been reported, I think it was from TalkSport, that he's turned down contract offer from Everton, and he's in advanced contract talks with Luton Town. Would he be a good signing? We've been speaking about strengthening our goalkeeping department. Is Begovic somebody that you feel would considerably strengthen our goalkeeping options going into the new season? And Jamie, we've mentioned it before about him potentially coming in combination with maybe a younger goalkeeper learning off him. Do you see that as sort of the perfect way things can pan out for us, that we get Begovic and then somebody more youthful, take a bit more of a gamble on somebody with a really high ceiling?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it'd be ideal for him to come into that goalkeeper union. We need that bit of experience, and he's definitely got that. He's played for 4 previous clubs in the Premier League. He's played for AC Milan, so there's absolutely no doubt in his experience in terms of what he's done through his career so far. Does he come in to start? TBC on who else we bring in, right? But you look at, like I mentioned on the last pod, Southampton bought in Brazili last year, threw him in the deep end, and I think that ultimately cost them quite a bit in the season, right? So I would love to sign a younger one. You see Burnley going out and whacking £19 million for James Trafford today, or a link anyway at least, and there's no way we can do that. But there are definitely options out there in terms of younger ones. Michael Cooper's one that we've spoken about before. So yeah, I mean, if we compare him with the right other one, I think Mark Travers was also linked. Yeah, I think it'd be a perfect option. He's got experience, like I say. Everton clearly wanted to keep him, probably as backup to Pickford, but still the fact that what he had around speaks volumes about what he added to the club. But no, it'd be someone that I'll be happy with.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think, as sort of we mentioned there, bringing in someone younger, somebody that can learn from the experiences Begovic has in the game would be ideal. Probably have to spend a fair bit of money if we were to get someone like Travers or one that sticks in my head is Michael Cooper at Plymouth Argyle. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper, somebody that's way above the level he's shown at League One last season. I know Plymouth are moving up to the Championship, but I still think he's worth the punt, and I'm sure somebody this summer will take him. Whether that's us or not, that remains to be seen. Well, that is it for today. A big thank you to the pair of you for joining. A big thank you to everybody else listening and watching, because we're now on YouTube. A big development for us, and we were saying before, really, really struggling to do the intro, because I thought not only are people listening to me, potentially balls up, they're going to watch me, potentially balls up. So that was exciting. But
I've been so much more self-conscious on this pod, thinking, shit, like, is everything okay? Like, before you can just sort of talk and get away with whatever's in the background or whatever. But so you've been a lot more self-conscious. But no, we've done it. It's a big development for us.
I feel like I'm the only one that's had zero nerves here. Like, I'm short form content king over here, so I'm just like, yeah, Sam, make all the mistakes you want, lads. We'll be all right.
You just love your face too much, mate.
Do you reckon? Do you know what? If any of you watching or listening to this now have actually seen our TikTok, you'd have obviously seen my dashing face so far, and the ones I've made, I probably have watched them back quite a few times, and I just thought, if anyone was walking past me right now, they'd think this bloke loves his voice. Like, I must love the sound of my own voice, because I always get paranoid actually watching it back. Like, obviously, because I keep editing it, making sure it's fine tuned and everything else, and I'm thinking, good God, I feel like I've heard myself speak enough today. Like, but all for bringing you amazing content, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the TikTok, it's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. So if you haven't subscribed to the TikTok, firstly, subscribe to the YouTube, because if you're watching this, you're already here. The button is there. Just click it. Even click that little notification bell next to it, because you need to know when we upload, right? Obvious. Drop us a like on Spotify and follow us on TikTok. I've just done our end of intro plug. You're welcome, boys.
Kieran is coming for your job.
Need I say no more?
Fear for your life. He's coming for your job, mate.
I know, I'm out of work in a bit. So, yeah. Whose decision?
I'll never be a better host than you, mate.
As I was saying. Well, as I said, that is it for today. Big thank you to everyone watching and listening, and we will be back next week, where I'm sure there will be a lot more to discuss. Hopefully we have some pre-season fixtures to talk about as well. Kit release as well, that's something else that we have to look forward to. But until next time, it is goodbye from us.